Hello, and welcome back for another speed build video today. So I'm a little bit embarrassed at how long this video is. I already know it's going to be really long because the speed build portion alone is over an hour long. So if you're new here, welcome in. I don't usually do videos quite this long, but this was a really special build in a lot of different ways. First of all, I know it's taken me a while to get this going, and that's why I'm just going to go ahead and start with the speed build right off the bat because this video needs no intro. We need to get through this. So what ended up happening was this was from our fundraiser back in June. I streamed every single day for the Trevor Project to raise money, and I started this botanical garden build, and I was feeling ambitious. I don't know what it was with me. I was like, I want to do a 64 by 64 lot. I've never done a 64 by 64 lot that I can think of. And I was like, okay, I know I'm biting off more than I can chew here, but we're going to go for it. But toward the end of this build, whenever I was streaming, I had a lot of people who were really interested about it and like how it got started, and people were like, oh my gosh, I can never build this way. First of all, yes, you can. It's a process and you have to trust the process. I did not have the whole entire lot laid out. I knew nothing going into this other than types of things I wanted in the lot, and that's what I started off with here, was just like pulling a lot of different things. And I also perused the gallery to see what types of things other simmers had done to get some inspiration and maybe, see some things that I would do differently, or see things I thought that I'd put in mind that I didn't see other simmers putting in theirs. But I wanted to have this nice big water feature right in the center, so I put a big pond with this debug bridge. Now, technically your sims cannot walk across this bridge, but you can make it functional if you were to like raise a platform and put it underneath it. I'm not worried about that. Your sim can walk all the way around the lot. They can't technically walk across the bridge. It's not a big deal. It's just there for looks, okay? So that's what we're doing there. And then what I'm working on right now was I wanted some place that was fancy that had the sign for the botanical garden space. And I wanted it to feature the rainbow because this was during Pride Month and I wanted to do something that was rainbow pride themed. So that's also where this comes in with the Trevor Project fundraiser and what I was doing. And it took a lot of streams, and then I ended up taking a week off after streaming all month and I needed a break. And then I ended up moving and taking almost 2 weeks off because of my moving out of the town that I was in. So I moved into a completely different city. And so we're just now getting the video up. I did some last minute touches on it this past week to finish up the lot. Really excited with how it turned out. I've never done a lot like this before. I've always done builds like with buildings, not necessarily a big park type lot. So this was a bit different for me, on top of it being a 64 by 64 lot. I don't know what is on my neck, but it is bothering me. Anyway, I ended up doing this for the first time, and I think it turned out really well. I included this kind of like fun exotic plant exhibit is kind of the idea with that, with the red portion, which goes into an orange sculpture garden, and then the yellow portion is kind of like this fishing hole that's raised up on a hill, and there's a gazebo there, and then the yellow kind of goes into this vivarium, which is what I'm building right now, this like big octagonal looking building. And that turns out to be a really fun vibe on the inside, so I'll let y'all see what ends up going on with that. And then we go into the green section, which is a topiary sculpture garden. And then we have a greenhouse in that area as well, where we sell plants. And then we go into the food court area where the bathrooms are with the blue, and there are lots of pretty blue flowers and a big tree. It gets you into kind of this in-between, I guess, like a violet, but it's more like the blue and purple from Enchanted by Nature. It came with some swatches with blues and purples combined. I was like, that could be like a good transitional area, and I'm calling that kind of like a fountain garden area because there are a lot of water features in that part. And then we get to the purple area, which is like an outdoor community apothecary teaching garden space. So lots of things on this lot, which I think is understandably why it took me so long to finish it and also just get this video out. But with that, it was 7 streams. We worked on this over the course of 7 streams, which ends up being like 28-ish hours of footage. So, the fact that I was able to narrow it down to a little over an hour, even sped up, is pretty impressive, I think. So I tried to be a bit selective, but I did want to show you all the process with some of the things I did, show some of the pain points a little bit as well, because I think it's always fun to me whenever I watch simmers build. I want to know how they did things, not just see like what it is in the end product. And I know I do that sometimes where I like tour builds I've already done, but I didn't do the speed build, or the speed build would have taken too much time, so I didn't do it. Believe it or not, like the Pride Mansion, I did not do that one as a speed build because it was even more footage than this in some ways. I think this is more interesting in other ways too, just because of the type of lot that it is. But I like seeing the process. I hope y'all do too. And if you don't, then maybe this video isn't for you, but that's okay. You can stick around. I don't do this very often. I don't do really long speed build videos like this, and I don't intend to in the future very much. But I know that some of you really wanted to see how I did some of the things, so I thought I'd leave in a good bit of the footage and then cut it out to make it shorter. One thing I will say is this greenhouse was a big pain point for me because I had a very particular thing in mind. And, when you're in The Sims, it's really hard to get things to translate. Like, you can see them in your head, how you want them to go, but that doesn't mean the game is going to allow you to do it. And I was really wanting this top room to be open, so no floor. It was open to the top, so when you walk in, you can see up through the glass ceiling, and it's just a rounded area there. It was getting really tricky, and I actually ended up, I think, having to delete the walls. So it's actually just, I placed the windows around, so they were rounded, and then I deleted the walls, and the windows would stay. I used deletion protection. So I think that's what I ended up doing in the final rendition of that. I can't remember exactly why I had to do that, but there were just so many glitches and issues with like trying to also get the freeze on the inside to work the way I wanted it to. This game has so many things wrong with it. I'm working on the food court area with the little bathroom space over here. Now, I didn't want to do anything too over the top in this area. Again, they're just bathrooms. So, I kind of gloss over this a little bit. Not like you're missing much of anything, but this is where the blue portion of the build is. And I ended up like just putting lots of cute little flowers, and I put like some fountains on the side of the bathroom space, and you could just relax. I was just picturing like it'd be nice to have a picnic or like some type of food court area with vendors where you could maybe even buy plants. I have some of the food vendors there. So I just thought it would be a really cute vibe and space to have an area where you can go eat. You want to keep people here and enjoy it here. I put that big fountain right at the entrance and put the terrain paint all around so you could like walk around it. And I really like the fountain on that. And I really like that fountain because it has areas where you can like sit down. At least that's how I interpret the little indentations between the planters, is like you can sit around the fountain. And so now I'm like pulling some things for the red section. I noticed with the romantic garden stuff that we have some actually pretty eclectic color schemes. I saw that there was an orange, a very vibrant orange, and I was like, let's use that, because orange was kind of worrying me a little bit. I was like, I'm not sure, like other than just flowers. Obviously we have orange flowers. It's like, what could I do with orange? So once I saw that, I was like, well, that's a no-brainer, because we have plenty of red plants and red trees and some red sculptures and things like that. So I was like, let's go completely with a sculpture garden for the orange section. And now I'm getting back to this sign. So this is the actual rainbow. So I use a lot of different colored flowers for this. This was really fun to figure out like which types of plants I wanted to use, which flowers for which section and the bands. And I do have, you can see that really big like rainbow sign that we have up front. That was just as a reference. I went back and forth. I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually keep it in the build. It's fun, it's cute, but in a way it just looked a little tacky to me. So I was like, I don't think I want to leave that. So I just was using it as a reference, and that's what I ended up doing. I just took it out. And then you will see throughout this video too, like you can see the fundraiser bar. You'll see some of my alerts. This was before I figured out about the toggle option on Streamlabs, where you can actually like hide alerts and things. And whenever you're recording your footage, you don't have to see all of this stuff. So back in my earlier streaming days a few months ago, I've gotten better. I really do think I've gotten a little bit better. But I put a lot of water features in this lot overall. And I don't know, it was a little nostalgic for me because growing up, I mean, I'm still obsessed with plants. My shirt even says, just one more. I always have a ton of plants. I collect a lot of the Lego Botanicals. I have a lot of those around me, which you can't really see very well right now. I have some of them in the back. I have them all around my apartment. I collect all of the Lego Botanical sets. And then growing up, though, my mom would take me to a nursery that we lived near, and I would go get plants, and I'd go to the botanical gardens downtown, and there were all these things that we do, and they had this butterfly like terrarium, vivarium area, and I loved butterflies as a kid. So, if you needed an indicator of me being gay, I mean, they were all over the place. I love flowers. I love taking care of flowers and plants. Not saying that straight men can't like those things, but I don't know. As a kid, I was also wearing my mom's high heels and dressing up in her, clothes. So I think that was also a pretty good indicator as well as a 3-year-old. But I digress. I'm going to stop talking about that. But it was just really nostalgic to me. And I still love plants, and that's something that's always been with me throughout my life. I loved caring for plants. It was just always exciting. Whenever I was growing up, I'd like water my plants, and I'd see all the buds and stuff, and I'd like be so excited to go to sleep and wake up the next morning. The first thing I would do is run out on the front porch and check on my plants and see all the new blooms. It was just a really cute thing for me. I don't know. I think whenever I have kids, if I were to witness that, I would be so like happy over seeing my child be excited about taking care of something and like seeing it pay off, and it's a rewarding experience. So I don't know. I think that this was a really fun build for me because of that and the history of that. And I just remember the whole like butterfly aspect with the vivarium and everything. So that's why I built that on this lot. So it's just me. This is me in a botanical lot. And I say that right as I'm putting the elephant topiaries, which is perfect because if you're new here, elephants are my favorite animal. You will not get me to say otherwise ever. You just can't win a fight with me on that. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I put those all throughout the entrance as you come in with those life and death lights that hang down. And so now that I have like the general path, that was the main thing, was I wanted to go around the lot, put temporary terrain paint just to figure out how I wanted to lay out the entire lot. And once I got all the sections kind of figured out, then we went back and filled in. So that's what we're doing right now with this red section, is I was like, okay, this whole area up here is for the red section. So let's go ahead and start filling it in. Now, I will say you're not going to see a lot of the like finished look of the lot in the speed build because I did work on it off stream a little bit. But I also ended up, the last stream was basically going back through the entire lot and adding things in, and I did not include that stream in the speed build. So the exotic plant exhibit, actually you won't even see any of that in the speed build here, but it's also part of the red section. It just goes alongside the entrance, that big archway that I have. And so right now you're just going to see a lot of green space over there, and that's where I ended up putting that like little exhibit of sorts. The red space was just kind of looking boring, relatively speaking, after I went through the entire lot, because obviously it was the first section, so I didn't have expectations on how the rest of the lot was going to turn out. And by the time I was finished with all of the other sections, I was like, now the red section kind of looks sad. I need to do more for it. And I realized that we have a lot of like potted plants and really cool looking potted plants that have red pot swatches. So I was like, maybe we could just have a cool area where we have like exotic plants, and I put like placards. So you're like reading information about the plants and where they're from, where they originate, and how we're magically able to keep all sorts of different ones here alive. But I don't know. I was trying to figure out something really cool to do with the red section because, like I said, every other section had a really cool feature to it. The orange is the sculpture garden. The yellow area has like the vivarium with the fishing hole. The green had the greenhouse. The like blue section was the food court. It had like all sorts of cool little features and stuff. And then we had the fountain garden and the apothecary space from Enchanted by Nature. So it was just kind of boring looking at the end. So I wanted to spruce it up a little bit. So that's what I ended up doing. Now I'm working on organizing the sculpture garden. This took a second to figure out how I wanted it to be. Looking back, I probably would have tried to make it maybe expand a little bit bigger, but again, it's really hard to plan something like this. It's not like you build a house, and when you build a house, you do the floor plan, and so it's like kind of more concrete once you figure out the layout. This is all just open space. It's open land, so it's a bit harder to kind of think through how you're going to space things out and organize it because there's not a definitive shape. Like when you have a room in a house, it's a defined shape. Like this is what it is. It's not going to move necessarily unless you change it before you place all your furniture and stuff. So it's It was a nice challenge, but looking back, it's like I probably would have, expanded this just a little bit so it was a bit bigger based on the relative size of the lot, but that's okay. You live and you learn. It was a good experience. I'm proud of myself for trying something a little bit different. That was a pretty big challenge for me. And I wanted this fountain because it comes with romantic garden stuff, and I put a half wall. And I thought that was kind of a cool feature to have it be on something like that. I didn't want to just put it, you know, floating or something to that effect. I was like, let's have an actual wall that the fountain's on, and then, people can enjoy it when they sit over there and hear the water running. It's just like every time I picture a sculpture garden, I like the idea that I'm sitting down and I can hear running water, like from a fountain or something like that is appealing to me. So that's what I was trying to do and why I really wanted a fountain in that space. And obviously, with the romantic garden stuff, we have that fountain that has the overgrown flowers. And I was like, well, that's going to be the centerpiece. It makes sense than an actual fountain. So I was like, well, it came with that little wall fountain, so why not put a half wall on it? And then I did try to give myself a little bit of liberty. It wasn't like it had to be just orange. So with the flowers, it's kind of hard to do that in the game. There are a lot of great orange flowers that have red flowers with them and yellow flowers, but it kind of works because if you think about it in the order of the rainbow, orange is between red and yellow. So it's kind of like, that works because you're kind of transitioning between those colors anyway. So it kind of ties it in really well, which was a really cool thing as you go through the lot to see, because it's not just like solid orange everywhere. So it helps it not be as jarring, because this orange section here, for instance, has a lot of yellow flowers in it and some red flowers. So I put the hollyhocks, I have the reds and oranges more on the side from the red side, and then I tried to put the yellowish orange combination on the yellow side as you walk through, just so it seems like a little bit more seamless of a transition, so to speak. And so you can see, like right here with the statue, I put those hollyhocks there because it's right beside the red section. So that's what I was talking about a little bit. And then I did put some greenery too. I didn't want everything to have the color. I want balance. I don't want it to be super kind of tacky. Whoa, I'm like moving a lot right here. Probably should have cut that out. Sorry if you just got whiplash from watching that. Like I said, I have over an hour of footage and it's sped up at 10 times speed. So I usually like to keep it around, 8 times speed, but to get this going, I had to speed it up a pretty good bit. So sorry, I just gave y'all some whiplash on that. So one thing I wanted to do in this area, because I have it raised, and whenever you use terrain tools and manipulate to raise it, especially on the edge of the lot, you get that kind of weird brown rough look to it, and you can't paint over it. So it just shows this rock kind of texture. And I wanted it to be in line with the environment around it. And so this was done in Windenburg, which comes with Get Together. So that's why I really wanted to use this lot, because I really like the terrain around it with the plants and the rocks. And I pulled those from Debug, the exact same rocks that you see off of the lot, and kind of built those into the edges and the mounds that I had of the raised terrain. And that's what makes it, I think, come alive a bit more. I say this all the time, but whenever you're building in a world and you don't know, because there are a lot of people who struggle with landscaping, which was this entire lot, which is also what kind of terrified me about it in the first place, because I love landscaping, but obviously that's basically what an entire botanical garden is. It's just landscaping. So I got a lot of practice. But that's one thing that is a pain point for a lot of people who struggle with landscaping, is like how to get started and what plants to use. Always, like if you're stuck, always look at what's around the lot that you're building on, what's in the world that you're building in, and pull from those first, because it makes your lot seem like it belongs there and fits in there a bit better. Even if the house itself is a completely different style and looks weird, which is perfectly fine. You don't have to build in the same style of the world that you're building in, but even just plants can help tie it in a little bit better if that is important to you. But if you're lost and you don't know how to get started, just look in Debug for those plants if you are able to access Debug and have it work well on whatever you play on, which I know is asking a lot for The Sims right now. But this is where I have the fishing hole, and I went back and forth on it a little bit. I put the wishing well, which is from the sculpture garden, so I left it orange, even though it's in the yellow section, again, just with the transitional, like I have all those orange flowers there too. But I wanted it to be by the fishing hole. I don't know, it just seemed like it was appropriate. So I have the wishing wall, which is that thing that's over across from the sculpture garden. And my idea with that comes with Snowy Escape. And I know it's not necessarily how it works in real life, but I was just picturing you could pick up a card, write your wish on it or whatever, and then go up to the well and drop it in. So it was just kind of like a cute little path that takes you from the sculpture garden into the yellow section. So you have a reason to keep going forward, and it keeps the pace up with like traversing through the botanical garden. So I don't know. I like the mini story that comes with that a good bit. And then, of course, like I said, I added a lot of water features into this lot. So I add this like little bitty pond area. It looks a bit rough right now. I promise it doesn't just look like a square when I'm done with it. Terrain manipulation, especially with water features, can be a bit tricky in this game. And to make it look kind of smooth and rounded is even harder sometimes. But it took me a minute to get it to where it looked okay. And I put stones around it. That's always one of my kind of tips, is to put stones around the edge. That way you don't have to look at the rough edges if it doesn't work out very well. And that just gives it a more refined look anyway. And I think it looks really pretty at the end of this. But I put that little fish fountain. And I've done this before too in a different lot. I did a wedding venue a while back where I took those rocks and I used a tool mod and I flipped them over so it's actually like a completely flat surface on the bottom of them, and use that as like a platform or a raised platform around water features. And I think it's a really cool look. So if you have the tool mod, I think that's a good kind of tip if you wanted to do something a little bit different. And if you have like statues or fountains that you want to feature, I think it's a really cool way that helps it blend into the rocks around it as well, because you're just taking a rock and you're turning it upside down essentially. So it's a neat little effect, I think. And then I took that like little dome piece from the romantic garden stuff and and then like changed it to a white color and put it behind the fountain. I thought that was like a neat little prop to use, in the sense of it makes it look a little bit fancier, like you have a backdrop for the fountain. Not that the fish fountain is very fancy in the first place, but I just think of fountains like growing up. I remember koi ponds being this huge thing. It was a fad, and you'd get the big boulders that you drill a hole through and turn it into a fountain. And like my mom was one of those people that really wanted it, and she got this big boulder to turn into a fountain. And we actually never turned it into a fountain. It just kind of stayed a big boulder with a hole in the middle of it. It was like really expensive to get things like that, to get a pump and dig the hole and all of that. So, we weren't able to afford to finish that project. But I do remember that being a big thing growing up. So I don't know. I was trying to, like I said earlier, like channel my inner child growing up and just some of the things that I did as a child and experienced. And my mom, she always had like rose trees and rose bushes, and we had so many plants. We actually ended up having, in the house that I did a lot of my growing up in, it had like 30 crepe myrtles. We had a big pond in the front yard. I mean, yard work was like a huge deal in my life every weekend. And believe it or not, yard work was my favorite chore. It feels weird to say that out loud. I really enjoyed mowing, at least specifically mowing. I wasn't super big on like having to prune trees and things like that and like doing the shrub work and stuff, but I loved getting on a mower and mowing. And we had a lot of land. Like we had a lot of land that had to be mowed. Our front yard alone was huge. I mean, we had a front yard, a side yard, a backyard. We had like 12 acres of land off of that. We had obviously the bank and the pond. That all had to be mowed. Not the 12 acres. We had horses and stuff and a fence on on that. I did not have to do that. We had a bush hog for that. It was a huge ordeal. And we ended up selling off a lot of our land over time. So it got easier and easier, which was nice. But at the same time, it was cutting back on my favorite chore, which I guess I shouldn't complain about too much. But I don't know. It was just something about growing up in that time period where it was like you had your iPod. I had an iPod Nano. So if you know what that is, I'm happy to make you feel a little bit older today. But I had my little iPod Nano, and I just listened to music, pop my little headphones in. We didn't call them AirPods. We didn't have AirPods. They were all wired, and would just ride the mower and do that all day long, and loved it. Loved every bit of it. And we had one of those zero turn mowers as well, which was really fun. I know I'm yapping a lot, but I kind of need to pass the time by just a little bit. I'm fine with talking about the build, but I can only do so much at a time. Okay, so I know it's a little dark right now, but we're working on the vivarium space. So this is like, If you're not familiar with the term, vivarium is basically like a terrarium, which if you're not familiar with terrarium, a terrarium is kind of just like a place for plants. And then a vivarium is where you have living things that are within a, confined space essentially. So I have like a lot of the fireflies. I think I put dragonflies. I put the birds from cottage living, the flock of birds. I put insects. I put bees. I put all sorts of things in this vivarium space. So it's just a nice way where you can walk around. So I kept the path all around the edge of it, which is what I'm working on right now. And then the center part has benches. I put a lot of fountains in, and then I put a lot of the branch lights from Enchanted by Nature, which makes it come alive and is so pretty. This is one of my favorite parts of the entire lot is this space in here because I'm just like picturing it in real life and how magical it would feel, especially as a child. I would have loved a space like this as a child. I think I spent the entirety of one of the streams working on this alone for the most part, but it was definitely worth it in the long run. And like I'm placing all these vines that we got from Enchanted by Nature in here. So it's very like overgrown feeling and magical feeling. So that's where I'm starting to put the lights in, and it just ends up being quite a bit. And it was a huge undertaking for that stream, but we got through it, we did it, and it looks beautiful at the end of it. So I would definitely say that this is one of my favorite parts of the lot. And I know that children coming through here would love this as well. So it would be a great space to just relax. You read a book in here. I did put like that overgrown fountain thing in here as well. I did go back and forth with an actual fountain, but a lot of the actual fountains were too big. And I didn't want to use a mini one because it didn't look quite right to have that big of a building with that huge glass dome over it and then just like a wimpy tiny little womp womp, fountain. It looked kind of silly. So I stuck with the romantic garden stuff, kind of overgrown plant fountain. And then I like put a lot of potted plants around the area as well. And one thing I'm really curious about the new Adventure Awaits expansion pack coming out is we have the butterflies, right? You can see the bug catching. I'm just like, are we going to get one of those like effects where we can add butterflies? Because I have been wanting that for so long. And I'm just like, can we please have a way to have the butterflies and place them where we want them, just like we do with the ducks, with the swans, with the fireflies, the dragonflies. We have mosquitoes, for Pete's sake. Like, why would we have mosquitoes over butterflies for this long in the game? That makes no sense. I don't think I've ever used the mosquitoes. Maybe one time I did. I don't remember though. But I want butterflies. I really, really want a butterfly effect that we can put on the ground. Now, I ended up using this debug kind of brick thing to put around the flower beds to block those off. So it's kind of like every other is a bench, and then you have the fountains, and then a bench, and then fountains, and then an opening for the walkway. So it alternates pretty well. I really like this space so much. Obviously, I keep yapping about it, but it's so pretty. And then I also just want to explain really quickly, if you're seeing this stuff like the leaves over here and the flower pot thing with the follower goal, that's from my streams. Again, this was before I knew about the toggle on and off thing on Streamlabs. So that's from my stream frame. So for my YouTube videos, I usually just have this kind of plain green box here. But with my streams, I have like a little bit more of a fun, fancy kind of frame that I use. I'm sorry it's in the way of the video just a little bit, but hopefully it doesn't bother y'all too much. But we have like this little flower guy right here, and as we hit our goal on stream, it blooms. So every time someone like follows it, there's like a watering can that waters the plant, and it eventually gets a sprout and it grows up and up and up, and then it blooms. So it's kind of a cute little feature, which I guess I should go ahead and plug. If you want to hang out over on Twitch, I do a lot of builds and other content there as well. So would love to have you come over there, join us. And then I do actually have another YouTube channel where you can catch all of my Twitch VODs, because I do stream other things over there, not just Sims. So I obviously don't post any of that on this channel. I only post some of my Sims content here. So if you want to check that out and hang out with me in other spaces and do other things, then would love to have you join in over there. So now we're working on the green part of the rainbow. So obviously every plant is green. So I was trying to think of something that's a bit more intentional with the green. So that's why I was like, we have all of these fun topiary like statues from the shrubs and things like that. So I was like, that's going to be perfect because they're solid green, and it honestly helps the lot feel a little less chaotic because when you look top down, you see so many different colors and it's like, okay, it kind of helps mute it a little bit. And then I liked the pun or the play on words with having a greenhouse. Now the greenhouse is actually not green. I wanted it to kind of fit in with the vibes of the vivarium, and I just thought white was a great neutral color that kind of keeps some balance as well. So I didn't want the buildings to be colored, if that makes sense, because then it could be fun. Don't get me wrong, it could look fun, but I was trying not to go super tacky with it because when you're doing anything that's fully rainbow codified or something to that effect with the style of it, it can get tacky really quickly. And I've definitely done some kind of tacky looking rooms that are based on rainbows. So I didn't want that though. I wanted it to be like elegant looking. So I kept it with the white for the buildings, and I think it turned out just fine. The idea was more of it was a play on words with green in the greenhouse. So we do have a greenhouse in the green section of the lot. And it's also raised up on a hill. So I thought that was kind of a cute feature. You go up the path, and then inside the greenhouse, we have like all sorts of plants you can buy, pots. I even have this one section where I was picturing like children. I don't know why I said it that way. I was about to say kids, but then last minute changed my mind. But children can go in, and there are like plants, the little potted plants from Enchanted by Nature that have the faces on them. So they can go in and get like little plants if they want one, and their parents will get them for them. You know, you got to convince your parents a little bit, but it is what it is. But it made me think of, with it being the autumn season especially, it made me think of growing up. There was a place where we'd go, and they would have these mini pumpkins, and they would have faces painted on them. I don't even remember where it was we went to buy those, but every year we would go, and they'd have big pumpkins too, but there were a lot of little tiny pumpkins, and they would just have little faces, different faces painted on them. And I'd put those like in my bedroom and just have them up on my bed frame shelf for a little bit as like a decor piece for the Halloween season. It was really cute. But it made me think of that, which was another nod to my childhood. So lots of little hidden gems from my childhood in this build that, you know, obviously you won't get unless I tell you, or if you were in the stream and I told you about it. But I pretty much just like put plants and stuff wrapped all the way around the room. I put planter boxes, and then on the center of the room, I did put a couple of tables with a lot of plants and pots on them, like we're selling them. Like those are the main tables that we're selling plants from. So that ends up being a vibe. I do put the flower arranging table in here as well. So I had a lot of fun cluttering this. I will say that the new plants from Enchanted by Nature helped a lot in this space. So, you know, I really appreciate those. I'm glad we have some house plants. It definitely helped clutter up the space a good bit more, and we have so many different combinations of the plants with the pots and the different swatches of each that you can do to make it look like you have dozens and dozens of different types of plants and pots. So I really appreciate them doing that. I hope they do more of that in the future with packs, not just with Enchanted by Nature, but maybe they'll add new little potters and house plants for these upcoming expansion packs if there are more coming. I've heard a rumor that after Adventure Awaits, they're going to take a break from putting out DLC, which honestly I think will be great because I think we've been inundated with so many new expansion packs and just DLC in general with kits and things like that. I actually wouldn't mind them just putting a pause on putting out new content because I'm a bit exhausted from all of the new content, and it's like I don't really get to enjoy it too much because I already have to prep for another one, and I try to do review videos of them, and so I feel like this extra like stress to try to hurry up and get it, review it, use it, see what I can get opinions on, you know, and figure out what I like, what I don't like. So it's just like I think they need to focus on the game. They need to fix the game. Focus on fixing the game before you put out more DLC. That would be great. I think a lot of people in the Sims community would actually highly respect that if they were to do it. So we'll see. I think my worry is that if they were to take a break and they take a break too long, then they might just go ahead and axe it all together. And that's not something that I want to see. Obviously, this game, I grew up playing it so much. And I know I'm talking about a lot of random things as we're going through this speed build, but again, there's only so much I can say about the build itself while I'm doing it. Y'all just enjoy and just hear me yap. So I grew up playing The Sims, Sims 1 original and Sims 2. Sims 2 was my absolute favorite as a kid growing up, especially when we got the business expansion pack for that. That was my absolute favorite. I always loved having a toy store and having people come in and buy toys. That open for business was like my favorite one of all time. Now, I I played it a lot as a kid, all the time. When Sims 3 came out, that's when it started to lose me. And I know it's very controversial because a lot of people really, really love Sims 3, especially because of the customization. So Sims 3, if you're not familiar, actually had to where you could like change materials. So like if you wanted wood, metal, the grain, like how you wanted it, what color you wanted it. There was a color wheel in Sims 3 where you could make anything any color, which was really, really highly customizable. And we don't have that in Sims 4. Now, as a kid, I did not like that because it made me feel very overwhelmed. I felt very stressed out. There were it was like almost having too many options or too many things you could do. And then I wanted everything to match. So I was very anal as a kid about everything matching. I'm not so much that way anymore now. I mean, I do like things to match, but I also like combining a lot of different colors together more so than I did as a kid. So, give and take. I think now I would probably like it a bit more, a bit better. I've not played Sims 3 in a minute, but I do think I would appreciate the customization at this point. It's just kind of funny growing up, though. That was my least favorite. I did not like Sims 3 very much at all. And a lot of people now rave about how great Sims 3 is compared to Sims 4. And I'm just like, Sims 2, in my opinion, was better than Sims 3. But that's just me. So let me know down below, like if you have a preference, which generation of The Sims is your favorite and why? Like what features do you miss? Which features do you like in Sims 4 that weren't in other ones? Like, I'm curious to know your thoughts on what you're thinking about that. And this whole debacle with, Sims 5 not being a thing anymore, which I also have conflicted opinions about. But it's just kind of interesting to see where the franchise has gone and what they've been able to do with the game. Now, again, there's still plenty to fix with the game, but I'm curious to see where it goes. So what I'm doing over here now with this extra water feature, again, another water feature, plus I added a ton of fountains. This is just like a sitting area when you come out of the other side of the vivarium. And I wanted it to be super lush and green because we're into the green space. So I did not use like a lot of flowers in this area. It was just supposed to be greenery. So that's the idea here, is it's just like a peaceful area. You come out, sit down on one of the benches, you can hear the water running, you can go up and see the fountain. It's just like a nice little area you can walk around and just look and see and appreciate and just imagine the nature that's happening around this in real life and the butterflies that would be here and all of that kind of jazz. It's right at the entrance of what becomes the topiary section of the garden, so it kind of sets the tone for what you're about to go through, so to speak, even though you don't have to walk through it. And this is the other side of that bridge. So the bridge I put down at the very beginning, it bridges from the red section over into the green section. So you can kind of go to the halfway point in the rainbow from the start to the halfway. So it's kind of like a fun intentional way of, I did the 3 colors on one side and then the 3 on the other side of the lot. And then I added the little fairy lights, so at nighttime it's kind of a cute little vibe, and I'll show you all that whenever we tour it. I really ended up liking this section. I think it's a unique little section to have. So now I'm starting to work on the topiary part. So we have these like raised little garden bed things from Debug, and I wanted one under each of these just to make it look a little more substantial. I just thought if it was just on the plain ground, it would not catch people's attention as much. So I wanted it to be like a sculpture on display was my idea with that. So I wanted to find a bed for each of these that would work well. And I put that one under the chicken because it kind of helps define the pathway around it a bit more. And the cow has the oval one. So I put the round one under the knight. I put that under this statue. I just wanted like some type of statue to go there, some sculpture of some sort. So there's the knight chess piece. I ended up putting the llama by the greenhouse space, just picturing kids going in there to get plants. Like they would probably appreciate the llama out of most of them that we have, and that would be really funny. So I have that one up there. I have the elephant over here, and it gets its own section. I have the cat one. I tried to find every single one. I think I have pretty much all of them. It would have been really nice. I saw with Adventure Awaits, there's this really pretty like floral topiary type bush that's in the shape of a flower with pink blooms in the petal parts of it, which looks really pretty. I would have loved to have put that in here, but obviously didn't have it for this, so that's fine. Not a big deal. I honestly think that would be a really fun series in the future to do, where I take old builds I've put on the gallery where we didn't have a lot of the expansion packs that we do now that might fit the style better, and go back and just kind of redo them. Download it from the gallery, not have to like start all over, just see how much it transforms and how much better maybe it fits what I was going for way back when we didn't have the expansion packs we do now. So I think that could be like a fun series way in the future to do, almost like a time capsule type thing, you know? Like, let's revisit a build I did 10 years ago now that we have all this DLC. Could you imagine if Sims 4 is still releasing DLC in 10 years? I don't think they will be. I honestly think we would have a new Sims generation by that point. I don't know. I don't know. I know they're like seeming very hard on like Sims 4 is the end and the last generation, but I'm just like, y'all need to do some serious UI changes and like really improve things we can do in buy build mode. So we'll see what happens with that too. I'm really curious to see where that goes. Now I did add the yarn ball with the cat, and there's a green swatch that matched perfectly to the grass. And so I'm just pretending like that is a bush. Now I could have put an actual rounded bush there, but I don't know. It was just more funny to me that I use an actual yarn ball and have that sized up in front of the cat. Now, one thing that was really funny with the chicken here after I filled it in with the greenery is I put an egg under it. I just thought that was fun, and in the chat, like, people were all about that, so that ended up being a really fun thing to do. So we have a little egg. The chicken laid an egg, so that's under there. That's what I mean. Like, we have some fun together, I think, on the Twitch streams doing things like that. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going back in and filling in everything after I laid it out, and I'm pulling all the plants that I used in that initial area with the water feature outside the other side of the vivarium where I have the fairy lights and the benches and stuff. So I wanted the same plants throughout that entire green section. That just makes sense. So it all kind of ties in really well together. So there's like this overgrown look underneath all of these topiaries in this bed that I put underneath each of them. So it just makes it look more uniform and more intentional. So anytime that you're doing landscaping and you have different parts of the house, for instance, like this is one thing I think of. Whenever you have a house, you have landscaping all around the house, right? I think a lot of people focus primarily on the front of the house, but you know, you should have some landscaping around the entire lot. You don't want to have like one set of plants and one, this is just a personal preference, by the way. When I say you don't want to, this is just my opinion. Sometimes it can look a little bit chaotic if you have a completely different set of plants in one part of the lot and then a completely different set of plants in another part. So what I try to do is I don't have the same exact plants in every part of the lot, but if I do introduce like a new shrub or a new flower in one area, I try to pull at least 2 other plants from another part of the lot into that part. That way it ties in a little bit better. So it's like I'm introducing a new flower, because obviously people have different types of flowers all over the place on their yard or wherever they are. They don't just plant the same thing everywhere. But I try to make sure that it's not just like a bizarre combination of things everywhere, because then it like kind of loses the realism around the world. Again, I take things like this very literally whenever I'm building, so I try to be really intentional with what I'm doing, and I have my rationale for why I do it the way I do it. That's just like a tip from me, though. If you want to have something that's new, there's a more strategic way to do it, I guess is all I'm trying to say. There's not a correct way and incorrect way to do it. Even though that's what it sounds like I'm saying, that's not what I mean. It's just there is a way to do it to pull it off a bit better than if you were to just put a whole new section of new plants in one area. So obviously with this lot, it's a bit tricky because you have completely different colors in each section. So there are times where I try to use the same flower, but different swatches of them. So the romantic garden stuff kind of came in handy for that, like I'm doing right now with this blue area. I have the delphiniums, I have the hollyhocks, which I used over in the orange section. You know, so I try to like pull some similar plants throughout the entire lot to tie it together so it's not completely random. And the only thing that's kind of random with this space is the mushrooms, but I thought that it would be a unique vibe to have that and just a little bit of whimsy, because from this point forward we do get into the Enchanted by Nature a good bit, because for the like purple blue swatch of things with the fountain garden area, we have a lot of purpley blue plants there, and those are kind of whimsy looking. And then for the apothecary area, which also came with Enchanted by Nature, that's for the purple section primarily. So I was trying to like do a little bit of an introduction to Enchanted by Nature stuff by incorporating the blue mushrooms. So it's a little bit different, but I think in a fun way. And with this being a food court area, I didn't have a lot of room to put blue plants. So which isn't a bad thing because we don't have a ton of blue plants anyway. But I wanted to do something that was a bit unique for this area. So again, I tried to like do the mushrooms as a fun little added nod to that. So anyway, that was my thought process with this. Now I did go back and forth a lot on these little garden beds that I did. They were not vibing the way I was wanting them to. So I changed the size of plants back and forth, went back and forth on that several times. And then I put these fountains, again, the one I used in the orange section, I brought over here and used in the blue and put that on the wall. And I used the tool mod to kind of bring it forward so it's a little off the wall, just so the vines don't cover it up entirely. I still wanted to get that kind of lion or whatever the sculpture is. I wanted that to come through a bit more. And then I just put like a little flower bed outside of the doors there at the bathroom. And then this is actually tagged as blue in the game. So this tree is tagged as blue. So I used it. It's obviously not like blue. There is a blue tint to it. It's not like a very green color necessarily. There is a blue cool tint to it. So I put it in the middle of this area, and then I put like a raised bed. And I thought it was really cute with the lanterns on it as well for this area because we have all of the different vendors. So there's like a fun little vibe for the food court area and the picnic tables and all of that. So I tried to tie it in as best I could. And with the little lanterns that hang down off of the tree there, I thought that was a fun way to incorporate with the other colors we get from the booths, because obviously I can't just find blue booths. So I don't know. That's just like my intentionality coming in a bit more, but I thought it was cute. I put more mushrooms around that space too. This is what I'm calling the fountain garden area, and you'll see why once I get into it a good bit. I'm trying to work on the entrance to it right now. I wanted it to be a little bit grand in a way, just so it's not just like you walk into a new section. I tried to like have some type of entrance into each section. So as you come through the very entrance of the gardens, there's this big red floral arch that you walk through to get into the red section. Then as you go down the path, there's the orange, yellow flower arch thing. And then once you go to the yellow, I actually have the orange, like concrete pillar arch that comes from Romantic Garden stuff, I think it is, to go into there. And then we also have the vivariums. The vivarium is tied in with the yellow space as well. And then when you exit the vivarium, that's your entrance into the green area. And then I have the green shrub arch that goes into the blue section. And then the fountain garden here is the entryway into this like quasi blue purple area. This is the only area where I actually did an intentional like space for a transition area. Like I said earlier with the orange, like I incorporated red and yellow flowers with that, and the yellow section has some orange flowers as well. Then we go into the green. And so this is the only one that was like a dedicated, I wanted to combine blue and purple, and that was just because of the Enchanted by Nature swatch that we got. So now I'm putting a fence here, just thinking like we should have it fenced off a little bit from just the open public. Otherwise, what's the point of having an entrance? So I put this really big fountain area off one side of the fountain garden. So this took me quite a while to figure out on how I wanted to do it and lay it out. And I also went back through and ended up putting like lots of plants. I tend to do that whenever I use these fountains. Anytime I have like a stack of rocks or like rocks up on a bank, realistically, you don't always just have rocks unless you live in the desert. Like, it's not just rock. You end up eventually, even if it's not intentional, getting weeds that grow up through it. So I always like to incorporate like ferns or some of the like jungly looking plants and plants like that into this section, like with rocks, and just kind of act like they're growing through cracks in the rocks or like whatever, just to make it look a little more realistic. Now, I did use these spa day fountains, which I think was really pretty, and it added a little bit of flair with the like purple pinky vibes we have going on. And then I put Spruce Almighty, I put his little totem or whatever you want to call that, how you call him, the sculpture. I put that on a like platform over in this area as well. I think I ended up changing that eventually because it made the fence look weird. Yeah, I just got rid of it. So I ended up using these like garden beds in the corners and figured out a way to make that look a little bit better. And so we have like this little area that's, I guess you could say, dedicated to him. And he just matched the area so well. It just made sense to incorporate him into this as well in a garden space. I mean, Spruce Almighty being in a garden space just kind of made sense to put him somewhere. So I put fountains in each of these corners of this section, which I think I just imagine this would be one of my favorite spots to come and listen to the water. Like I said, with the sculpture garden area, why I put a fountain there, I would love to just sit down in this space and hear all of the different fountains going. Now, not if I had to pee, like that would not be great, but you're by the bathroom. So to be fair, you just have to walk through the opening and the gate and go through and go to the bathroom. So it is what it is. Not to get, too personal, but you gotta go, you gotta go. You gotta figure it out. But I did put that big fountain in the center as well. So we have like, what is it? One, two, three, four fountains within that. And then we have that huge stretch of fountains on the one side as well. So that's why I call this like a fountain garden area, because they're literally everywhere. I have water features all over the place in this part. And then I used a lot of like the purpley blue flowers because the stone ground is so pink and purpley. I was like, okay, it's a little bit much, so let's try to incorporate a bit more of the blue in this area. And we actually do have a pretty good bit of blue flowers in this game, which is a nice surprise. And then I actually used those like kind of alien mushrooms a little bit because we have the like enchanted by nature mushrooms in the previous section. I was like, well, what if we have some different mushrooms over here? And then I used these cute little like pink colored trees that have the lights in them. I can't remember the name of them off the top of my head, but those are really pretty. They look great at nighttime as well. So this is what I was talking about earlier, where I start like putting some of the greenery kind of built into the rocks a little bit. Like you have ivy growing on it, you have the ferns growing on it, the leaves coming through a little bit. I don't know. I just like the vibe of this. I think it adds a bit more like of a natural element that makes it seem more realistic and just pretty. And then I add some nice little candles all the way around. So again, at nighttime, this lot looks really pretty. You can see it a little bit here and what that looks like in that little section there. And then I have the glowing mushrooms. I put a few more of them in this area too. Okay, so now we are finally getting into the final section of this. Now I did consider, the reason why I pulled that was I was considering maybe putting a playground in this area for kids, but didn't really have enough stuff that would be purple for that. And I just was like, I'm not really sure that would be something I'd want at the garden space necessarily. So since Enchanted by Nature had just come out, I was like, let's play with the apothecary stuff a little bit. So I ended up going with like an outdoor teaching garden, but it's like about apothecary skills. So this is something too that, is tied into my real life. So I do have a PhD. So a lot of people ask me in my streams, like, are you an actual doctor? And it's like, well, I'm not a medical doctor, but I am a doctor. And I have my PhD in nutritional sciences. We ended up doing an intervention in Texas, in Austin, Texas, around a lot of elementary schools. And we had an outdoor teaching garden at all of these schools. And we taught nutrition lessons, cooking lessons, and things like that. So it was kind of like a nod to that and my time in grad school a little bit. I was like, well, what if we have an outdoor apothecary teaching garden space? So, apothecary, you have to grow things. So it makes sense that you would have like a garden space for that. So maybe we teach classes here with apothecary. So I just thought that was a fun little thing to do here and put that in. And like a lot of the furniture is made of wood and kind of rustic, rough looking around the edges in a way. Not like rough looking, but it's just kind of whimsy vibes. That's what I ended up doing with this. And I think it turned out really cute. So I put a lot of these apothecary stations. I have the board up there. Now I did use the bar back as just a fun little backdrop to the whiteboard. And I think that was a cute way to use it. I don't know. I love using that item whenever I can fit it in. The thing is that sucks with that is that you can't size it down or it looks weird. So, you have to be careful with where you place it. And usually it's like so big, it's hard to place in a lot of areas. And now I like put those little arches that we get and size them down and put them in between there, like they're growing across the top of the benches. So I thought that was a cute little vibe. And then I put like the clothes rack in between there, and then I hung herbs from that. So I don't know. I love trying to find ways to use objects differently in this game. I do it all the time. And I have so much fun with it. And I love, love, love to see what we can come up with in stream sometimes too. So I thought that was a cute little way to incorporate the clothes rack that we got from Enchanted by Nature and using it in a functional way where like maybe we hang dry herbs out, So I put a different set of herbs. We have like the Journey to Batu, we have Realm of Magic that have like little herbs that hang on the wall. So I used those in that area. And then I of course like put this canopy that we get from Enchanted over the entire top because obviously with the sun beating down on you, you'd want some shaded space that's covered. So I thought that was really cute to have a more defined workspace somewhat instead of using walls, because I didn't really want to use walls very much. And then one of the last things that I did was working on this open area here and figuring out what kind of like decor I wanted. So I pulled a ton of purple flowers. We have really great options with purple in the game when it comes to landscaping. And I ended up like pulling everything that I could that would look really pretty in this area or that I thought I could use. I think I pretty much used almost all of it. And I was going to put that big thing from Enchanted in the center, and I ended up sizing it back down and putting it somewhere else. But I found this elephant fountain that had this purple swatch, and I was like, I have got to use this. So I end up using that, and I put it on this platform, and I make it a rounded platform in just a second. And that's what I end up using. And I think this is a good little hack when you have these low-lying fountains and you want to put landscaping around them. Raise it up on a platform so you could still see it and have landscaping on top of the platform. So that's what I end up doing. You almost, I can't quite remember, but I almost want to say you can't really see the platform very much when it's all said and done with. So I think, yeah, because I put flowers over it. So it's kind of a nice way to make the fountain look like it's just a taller fountain than it is. And then you can just cover up the platform entirely with flowers. So it gives it like the really, really, really pretty look to it. We're actually wrapping up pretty quickly here. I'll go ahead and hop into the game. You can see how this section plays out and some of the sections I didn't show in the speed build. So let's go check it out. So this is the final lot in all its glory. It is a massive lot. I had so much fun working on it. Let's just go ahead and like get into it. So first things first, this is the sign that I went with and kind of how it looks. So I took that big rainbow kind of sign down, but you can see like how pretty this is from the top down. It's like a rainbow shape-ish, a little bit. But that's the entrance. And then we have like our maps over here, a little walkway with the like elephant topiaries. We have the lights, this archway I was talking about. Now, this is the extension with the exotic plant section that I added off to the side here. So you can walk back here, and I put like these cute little like placards around. So you're like reading about the native plants maybe, or something along the lines of the plants themselves. So this is what that looks like. I did a cool little like fountain feature here. If you're not familiar with these objects, this is the bowl, the forbidden cereal bowl. I sized it up, and then I have this little thing, which is also like a fountain in and of itself. And this is from Perfect Patio stuff. And then I put this fountain from Lovestruck inside of it. So it's a neat little thing I think that I created. Again, I like to add objects together that come up with like some really cool combinations. But I pulled like the bonsai tree, the orchid, like I pulled some really fun looking plants, like jungly looking plants that would look, I don't know, exotic in a way, and put those in here and have little placards all around them. So I just think this is a cute little vibe, a little feature area. And the phone booth, I think, is just like fun to have a phone on the lot somewhere. And so, you know, it's a public phone you can use, and I just think that fit in with the red section pretty well. Okay, so back to our walkthrough. As you come in, you're met with that big fountain here that you can walk all the way around. And then we have just some more features with sculptures, more red flowers over here. And then we have our sculpture garden. So to the right, this is the wishing wall I was talking about. There's a little picnic table behind it. And then as you come into here, you can see the sculptures all around, have some benches. We have the water fountain that you can see. So cute little space. You can see what I mean by if I knew the scope and magnitude of the entire lot, I probably would have stretched this out a bit more instead of it just being a tight little circle. But again, it is what it is. I like how it turned out just fine. And then we have this archway here. We have the little pond feature here that I added in. But as we come up this hill, we have the wishing well over to the left with a fishing hole next to it. And then you can come back down here. I'm going to show everything at nighttime too. And then we have this. Now, I'm embarrassed to say how long it took me to get these flowers along the edge right here. This took forever to do this because it's on an incline. So anytime you're placing landscaping on an incline, it's very tricky. And so that took forever, and I love how it turned out. But we have our gazebo up here. This is like one of my favorite gazebos, and it's a debug object with the vines over it. Super pretty, but I thought that was a nice vibe. And then as we come back down through here, we get ready to go into our vivarium. You can see the pond off to the right here. Look how pretty, y'all. I love this lot so much. So we go into our vivarium. Lots of overgrown and like greenery everywhere. We have plants all over the place. You come in the center here and you can look up and look at that ceiling. Like, that's just so pretty. Could you imagine in real life what that would look like? And so we have benches and fountains all throughout here with lots of landscaping. And then we have all of our like birds, insects, bees, all of that over here for them to kind of live and thrive. And then, like I said earlier, you can walk around this, but I did want to feature, you can see the fountain from this side. So I did that intentionally to put it to where you could see it through here. So people walking through can enjoy the fountain, or you can be sitting on the other side. So that's the vibe with this, though. I love the ivy and the trellises. Oh, it's just so pretty. Again, one of my favorite parts of the whole lot is this building. And you come through here, you're met with the topiary section. So we're getting into the green. So you come over here, you have that fountain feature all back through there. You have all of these water fountains with the lush greenery. You have our chicken with its egg, the chicken and the egg, the cow. We have our knight right here. They have the little spotlights on them is what those are. Then we get up to our greenhouse space, and this is what it looks like from the inside. Like, just, oh, look how gorgeous. Like, oh my gosh, I just would love to see something like this in real life so much. But plants and tables everywhere. And this is what I was talking about earlier with the kids section. So I like the idea that kids come in here and this is where they get their plants. I just think it's a really cute idea that they can come in and grab plants like that are themed more so toward them. But all sorts of flowers, because we have the flower arranging table in here. So it made sense to have one table that had more flowers on it and then another table that maybe had more just plants. So that is the greenhouse. And as we go through more of the topiary garden here, there's our cat with its ball of yarn. We have our elephant, the bunny rabbit, the dog. I love this build so much. It's so pretty. And then one thing I did was I did put benches kind of around the pond as well throughout the entire lot. And then we're entering the blue section here. So this is like the food court area. You just sit down, rest. Has lots of seating and tables. You have our bathrooms. So nothing much in here. I kept them the same on both sides, but I like the little plant feature. We're going to ignore the clippage, but I like the little plant feature that goes in the window here. So I have this like seating area over here with the fountains as well. I think that's really pretty with the blue. Just to tie that in a bit more, we have a bird bath and bird feeder as well over here. So really pretty, cute little space. And then as we get over into our fountain garden space, this is the entrance to this. So once we come through, you can see all of the fountains everywhere. Look at this area with the fountains and the greenery growing through it. Have Spruce Almighty, you can summon him. There's a little birdhouse next to him, the big fountain, all sorts of the Enchanted by Nature plants next to these fountains and trees. It's just such a pretty vibe. I love this. I love it. And then you come out and you can see the pond space here. I didn't want to put stones around the entire pond. I kind of wanted to build it up on the more steeper parts where it's like a lower water level just to fill it in more. And then I kind of taper it off whenever it meets at a better height that I'm okay with. So I don't know. I feel like there's more of a natural element to that and how it looks whenever you do it that way. But I have a swing set right there, which I think is a cute little touch. We have the apothecary vendor right there in the booth. And so this is what the final landscaping looks like that I kind of cut off before y'all could see in the speed build portion. But this is what I ended up doing toward the end with that. So I did leave the platform visible. We have the little light there too, which is a nice little touch. But getting into the apothecary area, you have like some little planters, have like this crystal orb over here on that. We have a bench area. I put more bees back here, and I put the little fairy house thing. And then the apothecary stations, I have more bees over here with more planters. So it's such a vibe. And there's the archway to get into here too. Like I said, every section has like a dedicated archway or like some type of entrance. And then this is where the purple and green connect, but you can't technically walk across it. It is what it is. But then if you want to see it at nighttime, just at a glance, this is what it looks like. So it's like so pretty. I tried to make it work in every section as much as I could. I put some lampposts in here. I just love the candles. I'm so glad we have candles that can go in the water. And these trees are so cute as well. You can see the vivarium at night. Like, look at the lights. That's just so pretty to imagine that in real life. And then you can see all the sculptures are kind of well lit up in here. And then like the last part I definitely want y'all to see lit up at night is this part over here with the fountain garden area. I just love the way that turned out. And the lanterns with that tree there, So cute. So that's what we're looking like though. Had so much fun with this build. I mean, it is a huge build. So I put this on the gallery as Rainbow Botanical Gardens, so you can see it. It is a residential lot, so I couldn't change it, but I mean, you could literally just put it anywhere and reclassify it if you wanted to, but I really wanted to build it on this lot in Windenburg. If you made it to the end of this video, seriously, bless you. Thank you so much for making it to the end. I really appreciate you being here. If you don't mind hyping the video, would really appreciate that as well. If you haven't used your 3 hypes, if you want to use all 3, that would make me really happy. If not, that's fine too. If you want to use just 1 and you don't love me as much, that's okay. But thank you so much. And special thanks to my Soul supporters. I really appreciate y'all. And like I said, this was from June when I did my Trevor Project fundraiser. So if you want to check out that huge Pride Mansion that I just finished, I'll put that over here for you. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye. Oh my gosh, y'all, I can't believe how long this video is. I'm so sorry. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't plan on doing really long videos like this so much in the future.